Hey there, Internet fam. Buckle up and brace yourself because today's r/TIFU story is the wild roller coaster ride you didn't know you needed. Imagine a jailbreak. Now imagine it working, but only for a minute. Got your interest? Good, because this tale is about to take Today I Messed Up to a whole new level. So stick around, this one is unmissable. This is a story of a jailbreak that actually worked. For a minute. This was years ago and I will not tell specifics and I will use fake names, but this is the most epic screw-up I have ever heard of. And it was me that screwed up. I was in the military, but we were stateside. There was a group of fellow buddies with me. This was the night we all learned what a Jaeger bomb shot was. We had round after round after round after round. The night went by extremely fast, and my friend Brian decided he would drive myself and my roommate home to our off-base appointment. We left the bar, and it was not long before we were pulled over. Turns out that a sedan having three 21-year-olds leaving a bar at 2 a.m. near a military base is suspicious. The police officer knew we were all drunk when he got to Brian's car window, and we all admitted to it. The police officer gave Brian a breathalyzer test, which he promptly failed. The officer handcuffed Brian and put him in the back of the police car. The officer then asked myself and the other passenger, who again was my roommate, if we would like to take a breath test and see if we were below the legal limit. That way, one of us could drive Brian's car to our apartment so that it would not be towed, which would save Brian the impound charges. We took our breath tests and promptly failed. This is when things begin to get weird. The officer left us with Brian's car with the car keys also. The officer drove off with Brian to take him to the local jail for booking. To this day, I don't know why he left us with Brian's keys. From the time the officer pulled us over, it had been approximately 20 minutes. My roommate and I had an oh-so-bright idea. Public service announcement. This is a good time to mention that this took place several years ago, at a time when DUIs were only just beginning to become a serious offense and driving under the influence did not hold as serious a punishment as they do today. We were young and very stupid, and I do not condone anyone driving under the influence of any mind-altering substance. In fact, I am extremely happy that none of us hurt anyone that night and that I can talk about this obnoxiousness today. I do not take lightly the danger we put ourselves and others in that night. This idea was followed by several ideas that escalated very quickly. You see, my roommate and I were military police officers. We felt bad that we let our friend drive us home and he got into trouble. With an extreme lack of judgment and against all of our common sense, we decided that we would drive Brian's car back to our apartment. We didn't have far to drive, but this doesn't excuse the absolute stupidity that we were acting upon. At some point between the time we started driving Brian's car and the time we arrived at our apartment, my roommate and I came up with a grand plan of how to get Brian out of jail. This was a multi-staged plan, and I will break it down. 1. Get Brian's car back to our apartment. 2. Brush our teeth and put gum in. 3. Shave and get into our military police uniforms. 4. Attach our guard belts to our waists so that we looked like we were on duty. 5. Call my precinct on base and inform the dispatch not to call the jail that Brian was at. Every night my command would call every jail in the area to check for military members so that we could take custody of them. I knew who was working dispatch that night, and that person just so happened to owe me a big favor. I made it clear that I would not explain why I was asking dispatch not to call this specific jail. Dispatch agreed not to call. 6. I called the jail Brian was at and told them that it was my command and that I was checking to see if any military members were in their jail. They stated yes, and stated Brian's name. I asked if it would be okay if we come and take Brian into custody. They said yes. 7. Switch cars. Leave Brian's car at our apartment and drive one of our own to the jail. 8. One last pep talk and walk out the door. We arrive at the jail and it's around 4 a.m. and very quiet. No other cars in the jail parking lot. We go to the jail entrance and ring a buzzer. A corrections officer speaks to us through an intercom system. I speak into the intercom while looking into a camera and I inform the corrections officer that we are there to take custody of Brian. They said okay. It took about 25 minutes before we heard anything further, and as you could imagine, we were scared out of our minds and it felt like an eternity. It felt like the exact fear you would feel if you were trying to break a friend out of jail. Go figure. Then without warning, a loud buzzer sound goes off. The large, thick metal door in front of us slides open, and on the other side, we see 2 corrections officers. And Brian in handcuffs. I've never personally seen a ghost, but at that moment, I knew what a person's face would look like if they ever had seen one. Brian's jaw dropped and his face went extremely flush. Ghost white. I greeted the corrections officers and told them I will put my handcuffs on Brian so that they can have theirs back. Before doing so, I turned Brian around and gave him a pat down. I swapped the handcuffs and that was it. I had Brian in custody. My roommate and I thanked the corrections officers and we turn and walk away with our hearts beating out of our chest. We are walking across the parking lot to our vehicle when my roommate whispers to me, "Don't get in the car, don't get in the car." At that moment, a police officer walks up behind us and looks us dead in the eyes, then asks us, "Aren't you two the passengers of the vehicle I just pulled over tonight?" It was this moment that our hearts stopped and so did our breathing. Like I said, the parking lot was empty when we arrived. No one inside or outside of the jail had caught on to us. It just so happens that the arresting officer arrived at the jail while we were in the Sally Port waiting for Brian to be released to us. The arresting officer was just sitting there doing paperwork in his patrol car in the jail parking lot as we walked Brian out of the jail and to our car. I'm sure you can guess what happened next. Yep, we all got put in jail. About 8 a.m. our command actually came and got us. We got back to base and they told me to go home and that they would call me when they needed me and to get my things in order because this was not going to go over well. I did just that and then arrived back at my command 24 hours later. I did not leave for 45 days and then we were deployed again, so I never got off base again during that stateside stay. I was punished to the fullest extent of the Uniform Code of Military Justice, UCMJ, the military law. I was a disappointment to many people because of this screw-up. I felt ashamed and I took my punishment. All the while, I was the most famous person at my command. I represented what it was to have your fellow military personnel's back 100%. Everyone heard about this attempt to break Brian out of jail and we were practically celebrities. To this day, I cannot figure how in the hell I had the stupidity to try and pull this off. I'm proud to say that this did not ruin my military career and that I did get to serve out my enlistment and be discharged honorably. Needless to say, I have never messed up this bad ever again in my life. The military absolutely did not condone this behavior, but in some sort of way we were looked at as the most loyal friends a person could have. Our entire command had camaraderie like never before. It was crazy, insane, and stupid. However, like many other stories from my youthful years in the military, it's funny to look back on, and I'm grateful to have had the opportunity to serve with my brother in arms, even if we did mess up sometimes, like breaking someone out of jail for a minute. Oh my goodness, you cannot make this stuff up. I mean, wow, this is like a comedy of errors meets a buddy cop movie gone horribly wrong. Now, I've heard some wild tales before, but this one deserves a trophy. Military police pulling a jailbreak for their buddy, huh? I bet Hollywood scriptwriters are kicking themselves for not coming up with this first. Just imagine the scene. 2 MPs, probably still a bit tipsy, executing a plan that is straight out of an action comedy flick. I bet they were sweating more than a long-tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And that moment of recognition from the arresting officer. I mean, you guys almost had it. You were so close, but then, bam, plot twist. I bet that was the longest, most awkward silence in history. I can just see the realization washing over your faces like, oh, so we're going back to jail, but this time as guests of honor, great, perfect, just what we needed. Now, in all seriousness, of course we don't condone drunk driving or breaking people out of jail, but you gotta appreciate the sheer absurdity of the situation. It's one of those kids don't try this at home or anywhere else stories. But hey, at least you guys proved that no man left behind is more than just a motto for you. Talk about taking friendship to a whole new level. And to cap it all off, you made it out with an honorable discharge. That, my friends, is resilience. But let's face it, you guys were probably the talk of every mess hall for miles. The legend of the 1-minute jailbreak? Man, that's one for the history books. And hey, at least you got a heck of a story out of it. But seriously, folks, don't try this at home. Or anywhere else, for that matter. Hey, wait! Before you go off chasing after your next internet rabbit hole, give that like button a quick little smack. And if you're feeling particularly adventurous today, why not dance with the subscribe button? Join our band of misfits here and let's share the laughter. Anyways, stay safe out there in that crazy world. Much love. Peace.